It wasn't the moment I walked into our home late one night to find Megan laughing too loudly into her phone. That did it. It wasn't the way she shifted uncomfortably when she saw me, like she'd been caught in the middle of something private. It wasn't the rushed, "Oh, I was just talking to a coworker," that she blurted out while hastily ending the call. No, it was something much quieter, much more subtle. The feeling that I had somehow lost my place in her life, without ever realizing it. I'd always been the kind of person who liked order, who needed clarity. I needed to know where I stood in a situation, in a relationship. But the more Megan's life seemed to move in one direction, the more I felt like I was moving in another, further away. I had no evidence, no proof, but a knot in my stomach kept tightening, and I could feel it in my bones. You ever just know something is wrong, even when it's not staring you in the face? That's how I felt. Every small thing added up. The way her laugh had changed, like she was holding back some secret. The little notes she'd scribbled on pieces of paper and then hidden. The way she started working late more frequently. And then, there was him. The first time I heard his name wasn't even directly. It was through a message on her phone, an innocent text exchange that I accidentally saw when I picked it up to check the time. I know what you're thinking. I shouldn't have gone through her phone. But I didn't expect it to be like this. I wasn't snooping. I was just curious. You know that feeling when you want to look, but you don't want to look too deeply? I read his message. "You looked stunning last night. Can't wait for tomorrow." My stomach turned. I didn't recognize the number. Was this someone from her work? Was this a friend I didn't know about? I tried to let it go, tried to chalk it up to some harmless professional relationship. But then, I saw another text pop up as I stood there, this time from Megan. "I'll miss you too. Let's be careful, though. Don't want anyone to find out." My heart stopped. Don't want anyone to find out. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to face it. My mind raced as I tried to process what I was seeing. Who was this person? What did careful mean? Why was she hiding this from me? I could feel my pulse quicken. It wasn't like me to jump to conclusions. I knew that. But everything in me was telling me this wasn't something innocent. I didn't confront her immediately. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to hear the truth, no matter how much I told myself I wanted it. Instead, I waited. I pretended nothing was wrong, that I hadn't seen anything. I needed to process. I needed to figure out what this was, how to ask the right questions, how to navigate the conversation without falling apart. But let's be honest, I was already falling apart. The days that followed were a blur. Megan was distant, wrapped up in her world. She'd come home late every night, then bury herself in her work when she got there. I knew something was wrong. I could feel it every time she looked at me, her eyes glazed over, like she wasn't really seeing me anymore. I asked her about her day, but she'd give me short answers, the kind of answers you give when you don't want to give anything away. One evening, I decided to follow her. I didn't want to, but the need to know the truth was too strong. I had to understand what was really going on. I grabbed my coat, left the house quietly, and followed her car as she drove down the road. She wasn't heading to the office. Instead, she turned down a street I didn't recognize. I kept my distance, careful not to let her notice I was tailing her. I was an idiot for doing it, but in that moment, it felt like the only option. She pulled into a parking lot of a bar. A dimly lit, quiet place with no other cars around. I stayed parked down the street, out of sight, but close enough to see her get out of the car and walk toward the entrance. And then I saw him, the man I had never seen before. He was tall, with short dark hair, wearing a black leather jacket that looked far too fashionable for my taste. They met at the door, exchanged a brief, almost awkward hug, and then went inside together. My stomach twisted even more. It's funny. You'd think that seeing something so obvious would make everything click, that the answers would suddenly become clear. But instead, I was filled with dread. Was this some mistake? Were they just friends? Why did everything in my gut tell me it was something more? I waited in the car, watching the time slip away. I don't know why I didn't go inside, confront them, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I just kept telling myself I needed more. I needed to hear it from her, to see the truth in her eyes. When she finally left the bar an hour later, she looked just as she had when she arrived. Happy, laughing. She didn't look like someone who had just betrayed me. She didn't look like someone who was hiding anything. I drove home before she did, sitting in the driveway, trying to breathe. But no matter how deep I inhaled, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away, that everything I thought I knew was about to change. The next day, as she went off to work, I couldn't stop thinking about the situation. Was I being paranoid? Was I imagining things? Or had my wife really crossed a line? I knew I had to confront her eventually. But how do you confront the person you love about something you're too scared to even believe? That night, after dinner, I asked Megan about the message. I didn't bring up the bar. I didn't even mention the man. I simply asked, "Who is Liam?" Her reaction was immediate. She froze, her eyes widening ever so slightly, before she quickly averted her gaze. "Liam?" she asked, voice tight. "He's just a colleague." But I didn't believe it. And I knew I wasn't going to rest until I had the full truth. What I didn't know, as I stood there, quietly waiting for her answer, was that the real truth was going to hit me harder than I ever imagined. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of gnawing feeling in my gut that I couldn't shake. I had tried to convince myself that maybe I was just overthinking everything, that my suspicions were nothing more than paranoia. But as much as I tried to ignore it, something was eating away at me. I couldn't look at Megan without seeing the distance in her eyes, the way she flinched when I asked about Liam. It didn't sit right. And so, I decided I had to dig deeper. I wasn't proud of it, but I couldn't help myself. I knew she kept her phone unlocked sometimes when she wasn't looking, and I had a feeling that there were answers hidden in it. Answers that I wasn't ready to face but couldn't avoid. I told myself I'd just check the most recent messages. Maybe I could find something, anything, that would make sense of her strange behavior. Megan was in the shower when I picked up her phone. My heart raced, not from the idea of invading her privacy, but from the fear that what I would find might change everything. I opened her messages, scrolling quickly past chats with friends, mundane work messages, and pictures of our dog. And then I saw it. A message from Liam. This one wasn't a vague text. No, this one was different. "Liam, I missed the way you looked at me last night. Don't keep me waiting too long, okay? I'm already planning for our next meeting." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. It wasn't a friendly text. It wasn't even an innocent conversation. It was flirtatious, intimate, and hinted at something far more than just co-workers bonding over lunch. This wasn't just a harmless office friendship. This was something I couldn't ignore. My hands started to tremble as I scrolled up to find more. And then I saw it. A series of texts that made my heart stop cold. The language wasn't just casual or friendly anymore. It was possessive, filled with undertones of something far more dangerous. "Liam, we should have just gone for it that night. I'm getting impatient." And Megan's reply, the one that made my blood run cold, was even worse. "Megan, soon, I promise. Just wait until it's safe. You know how I feel about you." I had to stop myself from reading further. My brain couldn't process it all. How I feel about you. What was that supposed to mean? The woman I married, the woman I trusted, was she really this involved with someone else? I felt sick to my stomach, but I couldn't stop myself from continuing. I scrolled even further, hoping for something that could explain it all, something that would make this all make sense. But there was nothing. It was clear now, she had been hiding something, and it wasn't just a harmless work relationship. Before I could go any further, I heard the water turn off in the bathroom. My heart leapt into my throat. I quickly put the phone back, hoping she wouldn't notice. I had to gather myself before she came out. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to confront her with this. When Megan walked into the room a few minutes later, she gave me a quick smile. Her hair was still damp from the shower, and she looked so innocent. I wanted to believe it was all just a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe that I was overreacting. But I couldn't ignore the truth that was right in front of me. "Megan," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though I could feel the anger and confusion bubbling beneath the surface. "We need to talk." She looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "About what?" she asked, her voice suddenly guarded. "About Liam," I said, the name feeling foreign on my lips. "I know what's been going on between you two." Her face turned pale in an instant. I watched her mouth open and close as if she were searching for the right words. For a moment, it seemed like she was going to deny everything. But I could see it in her eyes, the guilt, the fear, the realization that I knew more than I should. "Please," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Megan?" I asked, my voice a little louder now. "Because right now, everything points to the fact that you've been hiding something from me. This isn't just a friendship, is it? What is going on between you and Liam?" She took a deep breath, avoiding my gaze. I could see her hands trembling at her sides. For a moment, I thought she was going to break down, admit everything. But instead, She stood there, silent, like she was trying to come up with some excuse, some explanation that would make it all okay. "I never meant for this to happen," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It just happened. I didn't want to hurt you, I swear." I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand to know everything, to make her explain herself, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just stood there, staring at her, the weight of the situation crushing me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. "Why keep it a secret? Why lie to me?" "I didn't know how," she replied, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to lose what we have." "What we have," I repeated, the bitterness creeping into my voice. "You've been lying to me for months, Megan. How could you think this wouldn't come out?" She didn't answer. She just looked at the floor, tears welling up in her eyes. I wanted to feel sorry for her. I wanted to believe that she hadn't meant to hurt me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been living in a lie for far too long. "I need to know everything," I said, my voice trembling. "I need to know what you've been hiding, because right now, I don't even recognize you." The silence between us grew heavy, and I realized that this moment, the one I had dreaded, the one I had feared, had finally arrived. There was no going back now. Whatever was coming next, it was going to change everything. But even then, I didn't know the full extent of her betrayal. The truth was much darker, much deeper than I could have ever imagined. I could see Megan's lips trembling as she tried to collect herself, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. I thought I had already heard enough to break my heart, but her next words shattered it completely. She inhaled shakily, wiped her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, she looked me straight in the eye, vulnerable, exposed. "I wasn't honest with you," she said, her voice strained. "Not about Liam, not about anything." I didn't know how to respond. I felt like I had just been sucker punched, and now I was gasping for air, trying to hold on to something solid. "What do you mean? You weren't honest about what?" The words slipped out of me before I even realized I was asking, but the questions were pouring out now. I couldn't stop them. It felt like everything I thought I knew was unraveling in front of me. Megan bit her lip, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. "It wasn't just him," she confessed, and I immediately felt my pulse quicken. "Liam's one part of it, but he's not the only person I've been seeing. There's someone else, too." For a moment, I just stared at her. My mind couldn't process what she had just said. Was she serious? "What do you mean, someone else?" I asked, though I could already feel the pit forming in my stomach. My hands were shaking now, and I had to stop myself from standing up, pacing back and forth. I had never been so angry, so hurt in my life. Megan closed her eyes for a second, as if bracing herself to say something she knew would rip our lives apart. Before Liam, there was James. A few months before I started talking to Liam, I met him at a work event. It wasn't supposed to go anywhere, but things happened. I'm sorry, but it's true. I felt like the floor had just dropped out from under me. James. Another name I didn't recognize. Another person I didn't know. "How long?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. "How long has this been going on?" "About 6 months," she whispered, her face flushed with shame. I thought I could keep it under control. I thought I could balance it all, but everything got out of hand, and I didn't know how to stop. I was in shock, frozen, unable to grasp the full extent of what she was saying. 6 months? 2 men? 2 affairs? Was this even real? Or was I just living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from? "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice breaking. I didn't want to cry, didn't want to show weakness, but the truth, her truth, was hitting me harder than I ever thought possible. "How long were you planning on keeping this from me? Did you ever plan on telling me the truth?" "I was going to tell you," she replied, her voice trembling. "I was. But then things got worse. After I started seeing Liam, I knew it was too much to fix. It was too late. I don't know why I did it. I don't know what I was thinking. Why didn't you just leave me if you wanted something else?" I demanded, my chest tight with frustration. "Why drag me into this? Why keep lying to me?" Megan's eyes filled with tears. "Because I didn't want to lose you, and I didn't want to face what I had done. I thought if I just kept pretending everything was fine, maybe it would fix itself. But I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Sorry." That word echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. I could barely hear her over the ringing in my ears. Everything felt muffled, like I was in a glass box, trapped inside a world that no longer made sense. I stood up suddenly, pacing the room in circles. You thought what, Megan? You thought I wouldn't find out? You thought I wouldn't notice? For months, you've been seeing other men behind my back, and now you're just, what? Expecting me to forgive you? I paused, trying to catch my breath. You broke everything. You broke us. She stood up too, taking a tentative step toward me. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for it to get this far. I love you, but I didn't know how to stop what had already started. It just kept spiraling, and stop. I couldn't listen anymore. The words she was saying were starting to lose meaning, drowned out by the pain that felt like it was squeezing my chest. She loved me? If she really loved me, then how could she do this? How could she betray me like this, not once, but twice? I couldn't look at her anymore. I turned away, pacing toward the door. I need space, Megan. I need to think. I can't do this right now. She rushed toward me, her voice desperate. Please don't leave. Please don't do this. I can fix this. I will fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. I turned to face her, fury and heartbreak written across my face. You can't fix this. You can't undo what you've done. You've shattered everything. I couldn't even bring myself to say the words I was thinking, words like divorce, over, done. I didn't know if I was ready for that. I didn't know if I could go through with it. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed. Our marriage, my trust in her, our future, all of it was in pieces on the floor. And I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. I walked out of the room, trying to hold myself together, but inside, I felt like I was falling apart. The weight of the truth was suffocating, and I didn't know where to go from here. I needed answers. I needed to know everything. But more than that, I needed to know if I could ever look at her the same way again. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't think straight. My mind was constantly spinning. Every moment felt like it was happening in slow motion, but at the same time, everything was crashing down all at once. I couldn't escape the images that kept replaying in my head. Megan's words, her confession, the cold realization that the woman I thought I knew had completely betrayed me. But what really haunted me, more than anything else, was the way she kept saying sorry over and over, as if that was supposed to fix everything, as if an apology could somehow undo months of lies. I spent those days trying to make sense of what she had said. The whole thing felt like some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Liam, the man she had been talking to for months. James, the one she'd met before Liam. The one she'd promised nothing would happen with, but had betrayed me with anyway. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was supposed to be her partner, her best friend. And yet, behind my back, she was building relationships with other men. Worse, she was hiding it all, lying to me every single day. How could she do that? How could I have missed it? These questions didn't stop. They haunted me day and night. The house felt empty. We hadn't spoken much after the night of the confession. Megan would walk into a room, and I'd leave. She'd sit across from me at dinner, but the silence between us was deafening. It wasn't that we weren't talking, it was that we couldn't. What words were left between us? Every time I looked at her, all I saw was someone else. Someone who had become a stranger to me. On the fourth day after the bombshell, she came to me with an idea. She sat down across from me, a desperate look in her eyes, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch mine. We need to talk. I need you to listen to me. I know I've ruined everything, but there's more to this. There's something else you need to know, she said, her voice shaky. I wasn't sure I could handle more. My heart was already broken. What else could there be? But at the same time, I needed to know everything. The complete truth, no matter how much it hurt. I nodded silently, bracing myself for whatever she was about to say. James, she started, her voice faltering. James is more than you think. He's not just someone I met by accident. He's been a part of my life for much longer than I've admitted. And it's not just an affair, it's more complicated than that. I felt a pit in my stomach. The moment she said it, I knew. I could feel the walls closing in. The air felt thick, suffocating. What do you mean, complicated? I asked, my voice hoarse, barely able to process what she was saying. Megan's face turned pale, and she looked away. I wasn't just seeing James. He was someone I turned to for comfort when things started falling apart. We had an emotional connection, a deep one, and I think that's what made everything spiral. I became emotionally attached to him, more than I realized at the time. He understood me in ways I felt like no one else did. And when things started getting bad with us, with our marriage, it felt easier to turn to him than to deal with what was really happening. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The betrayal went beyond just physical cheating. This was emotional manipulation, too. Megan had invested herself in another man in ways I couldn't even fathom. She was telling me that everything we had built wasn't enough for her. She had to go outside of our marriage for emotional support. I wanted to scream, to demand she explain herself, but something in my chest felt heavy. My voice caught. So, what exactly was going on with James? Was it just him, or were you still talking to Liam? She closed her eyes for a moment, collecting herself. When she opened them again, her expression was defeated. Liam came after James, she said softly. But it wasn't just about him either. It was about me. I was looking for validation, for attention. And in a way, I wanted to prove to myself that I could still be desired. I've been feeling lost for a long time, and I thought if I could just feel something real, something different, maybe it would fill the void. My head was spinning. It wasn't just the affair, it was the emotional betrayal. The way she had searched for something outside of our marriage to fill whatever emptiness she felt inside. I had always thought we were a team, but she had turned to other people to try to solve problems that, in reality, only we could have faced together. I don't know what to say, Megan. I don't know how to process any of this. My words were shaky, and I could feel the tears threatening to spill. I wasn't going to cry in front of her. I couldn't. But the pain was unbearable. You say you were looking for validation, but did you think about how I would feel? Did you ever think about what this would do to me? She didn't answer right away, her head bowed as if she was ashamed to meet my gaze. No, I didn't think about it. I just wanted to feel important. I wanted to feel seen, and I lost sight of what really mattered. I felt my hands tremble as I pushed them through my hair. How could she have been so selfish? How could she have thought of herself first, over everything we had? The marriage, the life we had built, it was all nothing more than a mask. A lie. I stood up abruptly, the room spinning. I needed to get out, to breathe, to clear my head. I need space, I said, my voice low. I can't keep doing this. I don't even know who you are anymore. Megan, I started again, turning to face her once more. I don't know if we can come back from this. How do you fix something this broken? The silence that followed was deafening. Neither of us spoke for what felt like an eternity. Finally, I left the room, unable to look at her any longer. I needed to think. I needed to be alone. I stepped outside into the cool night air, hoping the fresh air would help clear the fog in my mind. But deep down, I knew something had changed forever. There was no turning back from this. I was left standing at a crossroads, and I didn't know which direction to go. The truth had come to light, but in some twisted way, it felt like the beginning of a much darker journey. I had to figure out what I wanted, but I had no idea what that even looked like anymore. The life I thought we had, the love I thought we shared, it was all slipping through my fingers. And now, it was time to decide what came next. I spent the next few days in a haze, unable to focus on anything. My mind kept replaying every conversation I'd had with Megan, every moment of affection we'd shared, and wondering how it all fell apart without me noticing. The worst part was that I didn't even know if I could trust myself anymore. How had I missed all the signs? Had I been so naive, so wrapped up in my own routine, that I had ignored the small cracks in our relationship? My mind was a war zone. Part of me wanted to stay and fight, to try to salvage whatever was left, but another part of me just wanted to walk away and never look back. Megan and I had barely spoken after her last confession. She apologized, of course, over and over, but the words felt hollow now, like they didn't carry any weight. What was the point of an apology when the damage had already been done? How do you forgive someone who has shredded the very trust you built your life on? But even as I wrestled with the idea of leaving her, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I had a million questions, things I couldn't get out of my head. I had to know the full truth. I had to understand everything she had kept hidden from me, even if it destroyed me. I needed to know what else I didn't see. So, one evening, when she finally came home from work, I decided to confront her again. I waited for her to walk through the door, then stood up from the couch, my heart pounding in my chest. She looked at me, her face filled with a mix of guilt and desperation, like she was afraid I was about to say goodbye forever. I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the burden she was carrying, and despite everything, a part of me felt pity for her. But I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. I needed the truth. Megan, I began, my voice steady but cold. I need to know everything. I can't keep living like this, not knowing what's really been going on. She took a deep breath, her eyes welling with tears. I've told you everything, Mark. I swear I have. I've been honest with you. No, you haven't, I replied, cutting her off. You've told me part of it, but not all of it. And I need to know, Megan. I need to know why you did this to me. I need to know who else you've been seeing. I need to know if there's more I don't know about. She flinched at my words, but then looked down at her hands, folding them together in her lap. The silence between us stretched on, and for a moment, I thought she wasn't going to say anything. But then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. There's more, she said, her words hanging heavy in the air. There's something I should have told you a long time ago. Someone I was with before I met you. I felt my heart drop. What could she possibly be talking about now? Who? I demanded, my voice a little more forceful than I intended. She hesitated for a moment before answering. It was John, she said, her voice breaking. He was someone I met years ago, long before I ever met you. We had an affair. A short one, but it happened. And I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. I didn't want to lose you. I never wanted to hurt you. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. John, an affair before we were even together? I had never heard that name before, and yet, here she was, telling me that it was another secret, another piece of her past that I never knew about. So, not only have you been seeing Liam and James, but you also had an affair before we even started? How much of our marriage has been a lie, Megan? I never wanted it to affect us, she said, her voice pleading now. I kept it buried because I didn't want to lose you. I thought if I could just keep all the bad things from the past locked away, we could build something better, something real. But now I see I was wrong. I should have told you from the beginning. I could barely process her words. The layers of betrayal kept piling up higher and higher, and I felt like I was drowning in them. What was I supposed to do with this information? How was I supposed to look at her and believe in our future after hearing all of this? Every time I tried to get to the bottom of it, she kept revealing more, each new revelation making the wound deeper. Megan, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though it was becoming harder by the second. How long were you planning to keep this from me? What else am I going to find out later? Am I ever going to know the full truth? I never meant for it to get this far, she cried. I didn't think it would, but it did. I didn't want to hurt you. I swear I didn't. But I don't know how to fix it now. I don't know how to fix it either, I said quietly. I don't even know if I can forgive you for this. The silence that followed was thick with tension, and I felt my heart heavy with disappointment and confusion. I had loved her so deeply. I had trusted her with everything, with my whole life. But now, it felt like that trust had been shattered beyond repair. How do you rebuild something that's been broken so many times? She took a step toward me, her face etched with regret. Mark, please. I'll do anything. I want to make things right. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. I just don't want to lose you. Please. I looked at her, and for a brief moment, I saw the woman I fell in love with. The one who had once been so full of life and promise. But that image was fading, slipping away, replaced by the realization that maybe I never really knew her at all. She was a stranger now, someone I couldn't recognize. I need time, I said, my voice tight. I need to figure out what I want. I don't know if I can even trust you anymore. You've lied to me so many times. I know, she said softly, and I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I love you, and I want to make this work. But I'll understand if you don't want me anymore. Her words hung in the air, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely lost. The future I thought we were building was gone, and all I had now was a decision, one that could change everything. I had to choose whether to stay and try to rebuild, or to walk away from it all. But what if I couldn't? What if the damage was too deep? I didn't have the answers. And right now, I wasn't sure I ever would. The days that followed were like being trapped in an endless cycle, an emotional roller coaster I couldn't get off. I had a million thoughts swirling in my head, but none of them made any sense. Part of me wanted to try to rebuild, to give Megan a chance to make things right. But another part of me felt like the damage was already done. Too much time had passed. Too many lies had been told. Could I really forgive her? Could we ever go back to what we once had? I spent more time outside than inside, walking around the neighborhood, trying to clear my head. I needed space. I needed to think. But every time I closed my eyes, the images would come rushing back. Megan's face when she confessed, the coldness in her eyes when she talked about James and Liam. How many more secrets were hidden behind that smile of hers? I had trusted her with everything, with my heart, my future, my life. And now, all of that seemed like it had been nothing more than a game to her. It wasn't just the affairs. It was the fact that she had lied to me over and over again. And not just little lies, either. She had built a web of deception, a series of choices that had led us here. I kept asking myself, how long had this been going on? How many other men had she been talking to? How many more conversations had I missed? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the life I thought we had wasn't real. That realization hit me harder than anything else. We had built something together, something that, in my mind, had been perfect. But now, it felt like I had been living in a fantasy. The perfect marriage, the perfect partner, all of it was a lie. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the wreckage of everything I thought was true. And Megan, despite her apologies and promises, couldn't help me find solid ground again. She couldn't undo what had been done. It was late one night when she came to me again. I was sitting in the living room, staring out the window at the city lights, feeling like I was drowning in my own thoughts. She walked in slowly, hesitantly, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and fear. She had been trying to give me space, trying not to push me, but I could see the pain on her face. She wanted to fix things. But could anything be fixed? Mark, I know you're angry, she started, her voice trembling. I know you have every right to be. I can't undo what I've done, but I need you to understand. I've been lost. For so long. I wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until it was too late. And now, I feel like I've ruined everything. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. I just stared ahead, letting her words wash over me. It wasn't that I didn't care. I did. I cared too much. But no matter how much she apologized, no matter how many times she begged for my forgiveness, I couldn't forget what she had done. I don't know how to fix this, she continued, taking a tentative step closer. I don't know what to say anymore. But I love you, Mark. I love you so much, and I'm willing to do anything, to prove that to you. Please, just give me a chance. Let me make things right. I turned to face her, my eyes cold, my heart aching. I could see the tears in her eyes, but I couldn't feel the same way anymore. The trust was gone. The connection was broken, and no amount of words, no amount of promises could bring that back. She had crossed a line I wasn't sure I could ever forgive her for. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said, my voice low, filled with the weight of the pain I was carrying. How do I trust someone who has lied to me for so long? How do I look at you and not see all the things you've hidden from me? She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. Don't, I said, shaking my head. I don't need more excuses. I don't need more apologies. I need you to understand that this isn't just about what you did. It's about everything that's been building up. The lies, the secrets, the things you didn't tell me. And I don't know if I can ever come back from that. The silence between us was suffocating. Megan stood there, frozen, her face pale, and I could see that the weight of my words was hitting her. But it didn't change the fact that the damage was done. And it didn't change the fact that I was standing at a crossroads, not knowing which way to turn. I got up from the couch and walked to the window, my back to her. I needed space. I needed to think, to breathe. I can't do this right now, Megan. I need time to figure out what I want. I don't know if I even want to be here anymore. I don't know if I can forgive you. I could hear her take a shaky breath behind me, but I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see the desperation in her eyes. I didn't want to hear any more of her promises. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever believe her again. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I understand, she said quietly, her voice barely audible. I'll give you the space you need. But please, Mark, know that I love you. And I'm sorry. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. If you ever are. With that, she left the room, leaving me alone in the silence of my thoughts. I stood there for a long time, staring out the window, not knowing what to do next. I felt lost, adrift, like everything I had once believed in had been turned upside down. I didn't know if I could forgive her, but I also didn't know if I could walk away. I had always believed in second chances. But this wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't a minor betrayal. This was everything I had trusted, everything I had built, being torn apart. And no matter how much Megan said she was sorry, I wasn't sure if that was enough. The questions in my mind were endless. Could I rebuild what we had? Could I look past the lies? Could I ever trust her again? But most importantly, Could I even trust myself anymore? Had I missed something along the way? Had I ignored the signs, hoping that things would just work out on their own? The answers were still elusive, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face them. The days after that conversation felt like I was walking through a fog, each one blending into the next, my mind never able to settle on anything for long. Every step I took in this house felt like I was carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken words, the heaviness of Megan's betrayal pressing down on me with every breath. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to demand answers for everything that had happened, but the truth was, I didn't even know what questions to ask anymore. I was lost in a labyrinth of my own thoughts, trying to figure out where to go next, trying to understand if any of this could ever be fixed. Megan had been giving me the space I asked for, but I could feel her eyes on me when I came home late, her voice trembling when she spoke to me, like she was walking on eggshells, afraid that any wrong move would push me further away. She had promised to do anything, to work on herself, to go to therapy, but it all felt too little, too late. The foundation of our relationship had been cracked, and I wasn't sure if it could ever hold weight again. I tried to imagine a future with her, but every time I did, I saw the faces of the men she had been with, and the picture of our life together felt like a lie. It was late one evening, about a week after I had told her I needed space, that I found myself in the living room, scrolling through my phone absent-mindedly, unable to focus on anything. I had tried to immerse myself in work, tried to fill the void with distractions, but nothing worked. I had become obsessed with the idea of knowing everything, every detail, every moment of deception that Megan had hidden from me. The curiosity gnawed at me. Was there more I didn't know? Was there another layer to the lies? Something even darker than I had already uncovered? I thought about the men she had been with, how they seemed to have become her escape from the life we once shared. I wondered what it was about me that she had stopped seeing, stopped loving. Was it me all along? Or had she simply grown tired of our life together, looking for something new to fill the emptiness she felt inside? The door opened quietly, and Megan stepped into the room, her eyes immediately seeking mine. For a moment, she just stood there, as if waiting for me to speak. But I didn't know what to say anymore. The silence between us had grown so thick, so oppressive, that even simple words felt impossible to utter. I could see the weight of regret in her eyes, but it didn't make the situation any better. "Mark," she said softly, her voice breaking the silence like glass shattering. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer immediately. I just watched her, unsure of how to feel. Every part of me wanted to hear her out, to see if there was any hope left for us. But another part of me just wanted to shut her out completely, to walk away and never look back. "What is there left to talk about?" I finally asked, my voice colder than I intended. "You've told me everything I need to know. The lies, the cheating, the emotional betrayal. What else is there to say, Megan?" Her face faltered, and for a brief moment, I saw the familiar vulnerability that used to draw me to her. But it was quickly replaced by a look of determination. "I know I can't undo what I've done. I know I can't take back all the mistakes. But I need you to understand, I'm not the same person I was before all of this happened. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild what we've lost, Mark. I need you to believe that I'm trying." I couldn't bring myself to look at her anymore. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, the resentment that had been building for days now spilling over. "Do you think I can just forget everything? Do you think I can just pretend like this didn't happen? Do you think a few sorries are going to fix it?" She took a deep breath, clearly trying to hold herself together. "No, I don't think that. But I know that I've hurt you in ways I can't even explain. And I understand if you can't forgive me right now. I just need you to know that I'm willing to fight for us. I'm willing to do anything, Mark. But you have to decide what you want to." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, I felt my walls starting to crumble. It was so easy to fall into the trap of believing that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. But then I thought about the weeks, the months of deceit, the lies that had built up between us like a wall too high to scale. I couldn't forget it. I couldn't pretend that I hadn't seen the cracks in our relationship, the distance that had grown so wide between us. "I don't know what I want," I said, my voice strained. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't know if I can look at you and not see the lies. You shattered everything, Megan. You shattered me." She took a step forward, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, the pain in her voice undeniable. "I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted to be this person. But I can't undo what I've done. All I can do is show you that I'm willing to change. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Please, give me a chance. I felt like I was drowning in her words, suffocating under the weight of them. How could I give her another chance? How could I look past everything she had done? I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that the woman standing in front of me was still the woman I had married, the woman I had loved. But I didn't know if that person still existed. I didn't know if I could find my way back to her, even if I wanted to. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was thick with unspoken emotions, with the remnants of what had been. I could feel the tension, the uncertainty hanging between us like a storm cloud that was just waiting to break. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if we would ever find our way back to each other. But one thing was certain, everything had changed. And I wasn't sure if there was any going back from that. Finally, I broke the silence, my voice barely a whisper. I need to think. I can't make any decisions right now. I don't know what's going to happen between us. But I can't pretend like nothing's wrong anymore. She nodded slowly, her face crumpling with emotion. I understand. Take all the time you need. But please know I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And with that, she left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts, with the questions that seemed to multiply by the minute. Could we fix this? Could we move past the betrayal, the lies, and rebuild what we once had? Or had everything been broken beyond repair? I didn't have the answers. But one thing was clear. I was standing on the edge, and I didn't know which direction to jump. The days that followed were long. But as the days passed, the fog began to lift ever so slightly. I didn't have all the answers, and I knew I wasn't going to find them overnight. But as I spent more time thinking, more time reflecting on everything Megan and I had been through, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was the way she had stood before me, vulnerable, broken, but determined to make things right. Or maybe it was the love that still lingered, even after everything had happened. I couldn't deny that part of me still loved her, still cared for her deeply. And as much as I wanted to walk away, a deeper part of me wasn't ready to let go just yet. It took time, and it wasn't easy. There were days when the anger and hurt would flood back, moments when I'd see flashes of the betrayal in my mind, and I would want to give up. But then I would think about the good times we had shared, the laughter, the moments of tenderness, the memories that still held meaning. I started to wonder if that love, that bond, could be rebuilt, if we could find a way to move forward together. I called Megan one evening. She answered almost immediately, as if she had been waiting for that call. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant, but I could hear the hope in it. "Mark," she said, her tone soft. "Is everything okay?" "I've been thinking," I began, feeling the weight of the words before they left my mouth. "I've been thinking about us, about what we've been through. And I'm not saying everything's magically better, because it's not. But I think I'm ready to try. I'm ready to rebuild." There was a brief pause on the other end, and then I heard her gasp softly. "You're sure?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm not sure about everything," I replied honestly, "but I'm willing to work through this. I'm willing to give us a chance." Her voice cracked. "Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I swear I'll never take you for granted again. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm here, that I love you, and that I want to make this work." I could feel her sincerity in every word she spoke. There was no guarantee of a perfect future, no promise that we wouldn't face obstacles along the way. But in that moment, I knew we had something to work with. We had a foundation, a chance to rebuild what had been broken. We started seeing a counselor together. It wasn't easy. There were days when we would sit in silence, the weight of the past pressing down on us. But there were also moments of clarity, moments when we could talk honestly about what had happened, about the pain we both carried, and the hopes we had for the future. The road ahead wasn't smooth, but I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't the same life we had before. There was no going back to that. But perhaps, just maybe, we could create something new, something stronger. We began to rebuild. Slowly, step by step. We learned how to trust again, how to communicate without hiding behind walls. We took the time to rediscover each other, to find the things that made us connect in the first place. And as time passed, I realized that the love we shared wasn't gone. It had just been buried under the weight of mistakes and misunderstandings. But it was still there, waiting to be rediscovered. Months later, we were sitting together on the couch, watching a movie, just like we used to. Megan's head rested on my shoulder, and I couldn't help but smile as I felt the warmth of her presence. We had made it through the storm, and though the scars from the past would always be there, they weren't as sharp anymore. We had found a way to heal, to move forward. "I love you, Mark," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "I know I've messed up, but I'll never stop loving you. And I'll never stop trying to make things right." "I know," I replied, kissing her forehead gently. "I love you too." And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. We were far from perfect, and we still had a long way to go. But we were together, and that was enough. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There would be bumps along the way, moments of doubt, and setbacks. But we had learned the hardest lesson of all, that love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about forgiveness. It's about growth. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. And in the end, that was what we had. A chance to start again. And that was all we needed. As the years passed, we rebuilt our life together, step by step. The scars from the past faded, but the lessons we had learned remained with us. We found joy in the small moments, in the simple things, and learned to never take each other for granted again. The love we had was stronger now, tempered by everything we had been through. And together, we learned that sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful destinations. And for us, that was enough.